So yesterday I talked about sensitivity labels. And sensitivity labels are great in terms of helping people understand what content they can share and what they can't. That's why we use them. We can also put technical controls in play to block the sharing. But I want to go into another type of label, and this is retention label, retention policies. And what retention policies do is they help manage the content that you have in your organization. Now, there's been a lot of data breaches of late. Latitude, sorry, you guys got completely and utterly stuffed over leaking a whole lot of sensitive information. And the thing is irrespective of how that happened, and they did everything right, or as far as we can tell, in terms of trying to protect themselves. Where they potentially made a mistake was holding sensitive data that could have or should have been destroyed. Now, as part of their processes, they're a financial institution. They have to collect this sensitive information. They're dealing with credit cards, they're dealing with driver's license details, passport details, bank statements, police clearance in some cases, and a whole bunch of other personally identifiable information. Now, they need that for part of their process. And this is the challenge of dealing with highly sensitive or personal data. So they need it for that identification. In Australia, we have this 100-point identification check process we have to go to, which means sharing a lot of personal or sensitive information. The thing is once that check has passed and it's gone through a quality control gate to ensure that no one's trying to fudge the system, that content is no longer required. So this is where retention labels could come in and help mitigate a lot of these issues. The thing is that once we collect the data, there's nothing really, and most organizations don't invest time or money to do this, to go back and clear that data up. It just doesn't happen. We're busy with all the other stuff, all the other activities, client acquisition, sales, all the other processes associated with that. To go back and trawl through this, mountain of data doesn't happen. Things like retention labels can help solve some of this challenge. It does assume your data is classified and labeled appropriately in the first place. And if that is your problem, then there's other tools out there that can do a lot of auto classification for you. Microsoft has some basic solutions in there, but there's some really great third parties out there that can actually go and solve this problem for you. You've got petabytes of data. Petabytes is 1,000 terabytes, right? You've got all this data. A human is never going to get through that. So it needs to be scanned and processed by a machine. But the thing is with a retention label, is you can set policies to say that after X amount of days or X amount of years, etc., that what we're going to do with that content. It might be on that policy that says do not delete. Right? Never delete, retain forever. That's fine. That's a label. Another label might say this is temporary or personally identifiable information, so therefore delete after 90 days. Right? We still have a record that the item that existed and we collected this information. That's important. But we don't need to keep the actual content. The images, the emails, or anything that's associated with that should be destroyed. That way, when we do get a data breach, they get a record to say that we collected the data, but they don't get the data itself. See where I'm going with this? The other thing is that we have sort of things like financial records that we need to hold for, in many jurisdictions, it's 7 years in case you get audited, etc., for tax returns and tax purposes. But there's lots of other things in between. Engineering document, right? If you design and build a building that becomes a public space, right? Those engineering blueprints and the designs need to be retained for the life of that building. They cannot be destroyed. So there needs to be policies on how to manage that. So, think about a building that stands for 100 years. By rights, you need to retain that content or pass it over to the local authorities to be able to maintain that information. So retention policies have a lot of scope. There's no such thing after 7 years, just delete everything. It depends. But we can use these labels to help drive the automations that is going to help manage and maintain that information. Or simply, when we save the content in the first place, we stick a label on it. Or we stick a label on it based on where we save it. Then, from the user's perspective, they've already made the decision unconsciously by putting it in the right place, and the retention policies take care of the rest. So if you're not using retention policies today to help manage your mountain of data and destroy the content or get rid of the content or archive or protect the content as is required, you should start investigating it today.